they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. You waiting on the boy to fail, then hold your breath and face your death. Cause you play a roulette with each step I progress, no less. Go ahead and place your bets, cause we know where we at, we know we top tier. Cause all the hate that you bring, we know it stops here. I'm taking off like a rocket here, ain't stopping here. It's strange how they cannot see the future, but see profit here. Wait up, we gon' always win. I can't take no loss, my team hold no L's, no. Aiming for the top, can't make it by myself.
Welcome back to Brett Breaks Things. We're back Monday. I will tell you right now, we're going to be off on 4th of July, Friday. We're going to be off. I'm sure most of you will be doing your own thing, right? You wouldn't probably be able to catch me live anyway. You're off enjoying your 4th of July, celebrating this country. You should be. I don't care what's going on. Celebrate being an American. Celebrate America. And I'm going to be doing the same thing. So you can check out, past episodes, whatever you got to do. I'll be posting shorts, some content over that time, but we will be off Friday. Lot going on over the weekend, obviously. That's kind of an understatement, to be honest with you. So much going on over the weekend with the big, beautiful bill in the Senate. Some other stuff that I'm definitely going to get to when more details come out. We're just not going to have time to get to these Supreme Court rulings today, probably, but it's coming. And the Supreme Court, they ruled on a number of things: healthcare, internet access, reproductive rights, online regulation, decisions on the ACA, decisions on Medicaid, the Universal Service Fund, a whole bunch of stuff got Supreme Court attention over the weekend. So we're going to get to all that when we have all the details so we can really sink our teeth into that. I can't wait to do that. Also, tragically in Idaho, 2 firefighters were killed when they came upon sniper fire, when sniper fire rained down on them as they were responding to a brush fire that the assailant allegedly set. We got to be sparing with details. Nobody has details on this really right now. Right now, the investigation has begun, but 2 firefighters have been killed from sniper fire. Multiple firefighters were under fire, under attack by this sniper. He was found dead. We will get you details on that absolutely tragic story out of Idaho. We will. I'm going to give you a little timeline on how this all came to be in the Senate and where we are right now. Friday, the Republicans released the revised 940-page version of H.R. 1, the one big ugly-ass bill. Okay, so the Senate Republicans they got their mitts on it. They got together, got their mitts on it, made their changes, and presented it to the Senate. And there was a number of controversial, certainly, changes, provisions included in this. Saturday, the Senate voted 51-49 to advance the H.R. 1 to a debate. Remember how it happened in the House? They voted on it, brought it to a debate, voted on it again, right? After the debates were heard, certain amendments made, provisions taken, provisions put in, another vote, it passed, got to the Senate. That's where we are. A very similar thing is happening right now. It has been advanced to debate, and once it made it to debate, Chuck Schumer, I tell you, Chuck Schumer, in true Chuck Schumer fashion, made it as painful as possible for everyone. And we're going to get to that in just a second. Kevin Hassett, he got a chance to come out and show up on Fox and lie to you one last time before this made its way through the Senate. He showed up on Fox News. Kevin Hassett. He showed up on Fox News and he wanted to lie about this real quick. So that's exactly what he did. Just another chance just to kind of double, triple, quadruple down on the talking points. They make it so obvious that they all have to be on the same messaging. How you go about describing or explaining away and making it fit your waste, fraud, and abuse narrative, that's up to them. But start with waste, fraud, and abuse, and then, make it your own.
You're getting hammered on these Medicaid cuts, some on behalf of Thom Tillis out of North Carolina. What would you say to those who are coming after you on the Medicaid issue?
Right. The bottom line is that we're not taking away anybody's Medicaid. We're definitely not taking away anybody's Medicare. What we're doing is we're going after waste, fraud, and abuse. And there's a heck of a lot of it out there. A lot of budget savings have been found by people really in the House, in the Senate, not just conservatives, moderates agree that there's a lot of money that can be saved. And the bottom line is that we're, in the end, going to balance this budget. And we've got to balance this budget by getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. And we're going to do it.
Okay,
and we've also got all this revenue coming in from the 3% growth, which will be an extra $4 trillion in revenue. We've got $2.8 trillion in tariff revenue coming in as well. So the idea that this is fiscally irresponsible is also incorrect.
Okay, waste, fraud, and abuse. And then he goes about making the lie his own, right? That's up to them. That's their responsibility. Once they hit you with the waste, the fraud, and the abuse, they got to make it their own. They got to make it make sense. Some are better than others at it. Now, he's the director of the National Economic Council, so he's a little more well equipped to make it make sense, at least from his perspective and many Republicans' perspective. So he's a little more eloquent in explaining it away, waste, fraud, and abuse, than others have been in the past. But there's no doubt about what's going to happen here, okay? The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, nonpartisan, has got a hold of the new version, the Senate version of the bill, and they have crunched the numbers.
The Congressional Budget Office, the nonpartisan referee on the Hill, also added a new layer of complexity to the equation overnight. It now says that the Senate version would result in 12 million more people becoming uninsured, and that the Senate version also is more expensive, will increase the deficit even further, even more than the House version, which was already a bitter pill to swallow for many lawmakers. CNN's Arlette Saenz is on the Hill for us this morning and joining us now. So, Arlette, set the scene for everyone. It was a busy weekend on Capitol Hill in the Senate. What is about to happen this morning?
Yeah, Kate, well, the Senate worked through the weekend and they will be back at it this morning. In the coming hour, we anticipate the Senate will start the so-called vote-a-rama. This is a process where senators can introduce amendments to President Trump's big agenda bill. Now, it comes after there was really a weekend of deal-making and cajoling to try to keep Republican senators on board. There were only 2 GOP senators who voted against a procedural vote on this bill. That's Rand Paul and Thom Tillis.
Okay, so it's going to go forward. The debates go forward to a vote-a-rama. Now, we're going to jump ahead real quick and just tell you that the vote-a-rama has begun. The vote-a-rama has begun, and I mentioned that to mention this. You may be saying to yourself, Brett, they're adding to the debt. They're adding to the debt. Doesn't this require 60 votes in the Senate? No, not this time. Republicans, once again, the dirty tricks, the underhandedness, the clandestine nature, the ambiguous nature with which they go about their business, trying to screw you, the American people. This time it comes in the form of this new little tweak to the reconciliation provisions. Normally, if you add debt in a bill, it needs 60 votes and the Democrats can filibuster. They wanted to avoid that. They know they can't get 60. That's for sure. 100% they can't get 60. So what do? The first amendment to get voted on in the vote-a-rama was to act as if this isn't actually adding $3.9 trillion this time. Because we're just extending what was already voted on in 2017, this should not be considered adding to it now. We should have considered it a part of the addition then to that vote. Already been voted on, already been passed. This $3.9 trillion from here out that you're talking about, no, that's just making something that's already been voted on permanent. So you can't count it now. And because of that, and it passed, by the way, the first thing they voted on in vote-a-rama was that amendment, and it passed. They only need 51 votes and no filibuster. This was their plan all along, and they got it through. So I just want you to remember that. When you got that little itch in the back of your head, wait a second, what about the Byrd rule? What about reconciliation? They skated right by. Dirty tricks, underhanded, legislate skated right by. Okay, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. So When they presented their new 940-page bill, before it could get to debates, Chuck Schumer had something to say.
Scrambling to pass a radical bill released to the public in the dead of night, praying the American people don't realize what's in it. If Senate Republicans won't tell the American people what's in this bill, then Democrats are going to force this chamber to read it from start to finish. I object.
Objections heard. All right. The clerk will read the amendment.
Strike all after the enacting clause and insert the following. Section 1, short title. This act may be cited as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Section 2, table of contents. The table of contents of this act is as follows. Section 1, short title. Section 2, table of contents. Title 1, Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry.
So let me clean up this timeline. And by the way, if you ever thought about a career in politics, remember what just happened there. Schumer, in an attempt to just troll and make life as difficult as possible for this Republican-led Senate, he requests that 940 pages of this bill be read. Everything, the whole deal. And I guess this way you can avoid your Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world coming out and saying, I didn't even read the bill. I didn't know what I was voting on. Chuck's taking that right away. Read every page of this. That began on Saturday at 10 p.m. And that reading, you heard him, table of contents. He started with table of contents. That began at 10 p.m. Saturday and went till 3 p.m. Sunday before it even got to debate. You want to talk about trying to push this thing through the dead of the night. The literal reading of this was done all the way through the dead of the night. Hope everybody's paying attention. Hope everybody's got their aides working overtime. All 940 pages read right there on the floor. Yikes. Excruciating. But, well done, Chuck. Well done. You wanted to troll him? You got him. And nobody on the Republican side can say, well, I didn't actually know that was in there. What, weren't you paying attention? In the, pardon me, in the 12 hours or whatever it was that it was being read? Didn't you pay attention? So it got to debate around 3 p.m. Sunday. And that's when the debates began. And there was a lot of debating. We've got sound from everybody. Rand Paul had something to say before the debates began, and then he had more to say. We're going to play a little Rand Paul. How odd. I like listening to Rand Paul these days.
Once this bill votes and this debt ceiling goes through, the debt is owned by the GOP, and there is no more campaigning and saying this is the Democrats. It will be owned by the Republicans, and I think that's a huge mistake.
And he continues, when he gets to the House floor and the debate, or the Senate floor and the debates began, he had more to say.
Which brings us back to maybe we have to judge the effects of the big, not so beautiful bill by looking at what happens to the debt next year. Supporters of the bill admit it adds $270 billion to the debt next year. That's the only thing we know for certain. We don't know what happens in year 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, but we know next year this bill will grow the deficit by $270 billion. In addition, the bill increases the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. What does that mean? That is an admission that they know they aren't controlling the deficit. They know that the ensuing years will add trillions more. So we're adding $2 trillion this year, but they're anticipating, the authors of the bill anticipating adding more than $2 trillion next year. That doesn't sound at all conservative to me, and that's why I'm a no.
What he's telling you is the Republicans know damn well what they're doing to the debt because they're raising the debt ceiling. They know what this is going to do. They're not, refuting CBO projections. They're affirming them themselves by raising the ceiling. And like Rand said, they're going to have to own it. No more talking about Dems taxing the hell or costing America money. No more talk about them. It's the conservatives doing it, raising the debt ceiling. It's in the bill.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because democracy doesn't defend itself.
Interruption. You've made Doge a main target, right? You've got that in the crosshairs. Medicaid is the next target on behalf of Democrats. There are 80 million Americans who receive some measure of Medicaid reimbursement to a tune of $600 billion. Can you not admit that there's got to be some waste, fraud, and abuse?
There's no question.
In that $600 billion.
There's waste, fraud, and abuse throughout government. There's no question about that, and we have to go after waste, fraud, and abuse. But let's recognize that 2/3 of the people in nursing homes are paid for with Medicaid. 1/10 of the veterans in the United States of America are on Medicaid. There are 70 million Americans on Medicaid. It's not just low-income people who don't have any other resources. It's not just disabled people who are really have no other opportunities. It's not just people getting the Affordable Care Act help with health insurance. It's veterans. It's senior citizens.
But you
children.
can see that there is room to trim in that area.
Yeah, but what we're seeing from Doge, what we've been seeing so far, a lot of it's just been reckless. Why do you want to eliminate people who work to oversee the nuclear stockpile? Why do you want to get rid of people who oversee the avian flu? Why do you want to get rid of people who oversee a measles outbreak in Texas and in New Mexico?
But they brought them back. I see your point.
But there's a lot of these instances, and I've been involved in government before where I've reduced the size of the workforce when I was Nassau County Executive by 15 to 20%. You have to have a plan. It can't just be reckless and just cut without a plan as to how you're going to still deliver the important services.
Still early.
So there's agreement that something should be done. Just a question on how to do it from your perspective.
Their reaction right there to Tom Swoozy, he's a Democrat out of New York, their reaction to him was as much complicity, to your point, as they're able to muster to an unfriendly entity on their show. That is a Democrat on Fox News. They're asking him questions, and his response was so precise with amazing detail and truth that they absolutely were stunned in the face of it and said, okay, we agree there's things that need to be changed. What a macro overview of you may be right. Right? Anything to say this Democrat on our show may be right. And he is, of course, right. There was a couple other interesting interviews just before this whole, drama unfolded in the Senate. And I just want to get to a couple of them, and we'll get right back to the debates and what some of our reps and our senators had to say, on the debate floor. But just a couple real quick.
White House says that because of the extension of the Trump tax cuts in this legislation, there will be an increase in the take-home pay of a typical Virginia family, anywhere between $8,000 and $14,000 a year.
This is Mark Warner.
Won't that be good for the citizens of your state?
Democrat.
What I can show you other data that shows if you're at minimum wage, you will see your costs go up about 53% based upon not only the health care cost cuts, but also the earned income tax credit, the EITC, make it much more difficult for folks. I think the overwhelming amount of data shows that on this one, this is tax cuts for the wealthiest to end up cutting health care. Plain and simple. You can put any lipstick you want on this pig, but it's still a pig.
First of all, could somebody get him a glass of water? Dude was struggling. I feel your pain. I speak into a mic too. Sometimes I get dry-mouthedness. Billy, when I say I have a dry mouth, I don't want you to get me a glass of water. I want you to understand what it is to have a dry mouth. I do understand. I do understand, Mark Warner, you look like you had a dry mouth. Somebody on set should have helped you out. That being said, you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. Okay, you can talk about waste, fraud, and abuse all you want. Okay, you can talk about it all you want. But this is what it is. It is tax cuts for the billionaire and corporate class, and 11-point-something million people will be off their health care. That's it. You could add all of the extra details. You can do all the mental gymnastics. You can point to this figure, point to future, expected revenue, this, that, the other, waste, fraud, and abuse. You can say what you want, but at the end of the day, this is what will happen. This is what will happen. He's absolutely right. Okay? And Chris Murphy, I told you I like playing Chris Murphy. Dude makes a ton of sense.
Are two Republicans who say they are a no on this legislation. Senator Murphy, do you think there's any chance that the so-called big beautiful bill does not pass the Senate?
I do think there's a chance it doesn't pass. They are trying to ram it through as quickly as they can, likely in the middle of the night tonight, because every day that this bill hangs out there, it becomes less popular. As you noted, by almost a 2-to-1 margin, the American people hate this piece of legislation because it's going to represent the biggest transfer of wealth and money from the poor and the middle class to the rich in the history of the country. It's not about efficiencies in Medicaid. CBO, which is the Congressional Budget Office, nonpartisan, says it's going to kick between 10 and 15 million people off their health care. And for what? To be able to afford a new $270,000 tax cut for the richest families in the country. New tax cuts for corporations, new tax cuts for billionaires. This bill stinks. It's a moral abomination. Everybody that learns about it hates it. And so there's a chance that it won't pass. That's in part why we're forcing them to read it, because every single day that people learn about it, they're flooding their members' offices with calls to tell them to stop this bill. Nobody is asking for 16 million people to lose their health care just so that corporations and the very rich can get a new tax cut. That's super unpopular, and we're going to work this thing until the final vote.
It's super unpopular, and it's going to pass. I told you it was going to pass. It's going to pass. Super unpopular. It's going to pass. I love you, Chris. I love that you have hope that it won't get through. It will get through. I would almost argue, Chris, don't even put that false hope out there. Be honest, because I think you know that it won't pass as well. You'd like to paint it as something that's unpassable. Unfortunately, in our current political climate, it is absolutely passable through the Senate and the House. So I agree with everything you said except that. I didn't think it will pass. And he's talking about, somewhere between 10 and 15 million off their health care. I just want to be clear with you, in this new version, the legislation would result in 11.8 is the figure most people are going with. 11.8 Americans will lose their health insurance by 2034, okay? It includes 1.4 million people without verified citizenship, nationality, or satisfactory immigration status. They would be done because that state-level funding from New York, California, and a couple other deep blue states that would pick up the funding for immigrants who are, in the process somehow. Either they're asylees who hadn't been seen yet, their claims are being processed, they have a court date, whatever it may be. Some states would pick up the funding for their health care. That is gone. That is done in this bill. Also, so $1.1 trillion estimated being cut from Medicaid, Medicare, and Obamacare, the ACA, in this bill. 1.1 trillion. 1 trillion of that 1.1 trillion is specifically from Medicaid. That is why people are going to lose their health insurance. You are massive, unprecedented cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, ACA, and unprecedented tax cuts for the rich, the wealthy. Let's be clear about what we're doing this for, right? I'm telling you about the Medicaid cuts. I'm telling you about the health care impact. What are we doing this for? Lowered income tax rates for rich individuals. Double the standard deduction for corporations. They can deduct double what they were deducting before. We've told stories about mega corporations paying almost nothing because of certain deductions and languages in the tax code. It's going to get even worse now. Even worse. And the corporate tax rate going from an unreal cut from 35% to 21%, which they want to make permanent. Okay? Just remember, that's what we're doing this for. That's what this is all about. Your grandmother getting kicked out of her nursing home, your disabled uncle getting kicked off his health care, losing his disability. That's why it's happening. And don't forget, if your grandmother should complain or squawk, well, then we know that she's the fraudster. Anybody who complains about losing their health care, they're the fraudster. That's what we've been told. All right, we were told that. So I just want to be clear about who's losing what and who's gaining what in this Senate version. Okay? So we're gonna get to the debates now. We're gonna get to the debates. This is Murray. She's been great. She's really good in hearings, and she's been really on point in terms of the one big ugly ass bill, and she spent a lot of time on the Senate floor debating over that period yesterday.
Mr. President, I've been here a long time. Not only have I been the budget chair, I am the longest serving Democrat on that committee. And in my 33 years here in the United States Senate, things have never worked this way, where one party so egregiously ignores precedent, process, and the parliamentarian, and does that all in order to wipe away trillions of dollars of costs for a bill that could just be the most expensive legislation this body ever passes. Forget Senate procedure for a minute. Math, Mr. President, has never worked that way.
Yeah.
I taught preschool, and I'll tell you, even our littlest kids knows the difference between a trillion and zero. It doesn't take a preschooler to tell you they're using magic math, or that you can't just ignore the rules you don't like. How many times have my colleagues cried about the debt? How many times have they told me, I know you want to invest in childcare, Patty, but we got to get this budget under control.
Yeah.
But now that it's tax cuts for billionaires and corporations, suddenly the budget doesn't matter anymore. Suddenly the rules do not matter anymore. Suddenly a couple trillion goes away with a sprinkle of fairy dust.
That's right. When it comes to the tax cuts for the rich, everything's on the chopping block all of a sudden. VA, SNAP, Medicaid, Medicare, ACA, NOAA, Department of Education. Everything's cuttable. Everything's on the chopping block. Now that we want to give the billionaires a huge tax cut. She continues.
Have you no shame? If you think you can look the American people in the face and tell them we have to bring down the debt after passing what might be the most expensive bill in history, if you think you can do that and then be taken seriously, well, you know what? If you believe that, maybe you are foolish enough to think that zero and a trillion are the same. Mr. President?
And then finally.
Now, let's be clear. When we talk about how unpopular this bill is with the American people, the reason is simple. This bill polls like garbage.
Garbage.
Because it is garbage.
Garbage.
That's why it should go nowhere except a trash bin.
That is the language that should be used in terms of this bill. Garbage. Well done. Well done. How unpopular is it? Let's take a quick look. These are 5 separate polling establishments. Pew, KFF, Quinnipiac, WAPO, and Fox. Look at those numbers. The yellow... Oh, where'd it go? Look at those numbers. The red is opposing this bill. The red is opposing. The blue is for the bill. Across the board, even Fox News polls. Nobody approves of this. Everybody opposes this, and they should. Everybody opposes this. This is extremely unpopular. This is why you're getting Republican pushback. This is why. They know how unpopular it is. Now being associated with this administration is going to cost them votes. When is enough enough? What's it going to take, Republicans?
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. Brett breaks things, fighting for America one mic drop at a time.
All right. So, Senator Murray, she was awesome. She is awesome. She's great in hearings as well. She asked the tough questions, but more importantly, her tone was right on point. This bill is garbage, and that's why the American public see it for what it is, garbage. That's why Republican, senators and House members are having such a hard time getting on board in certain, low-income states. They have a hard time getting on board because they just know how deeply unpopular all of this is. You can spin it all you want. You can talk about as much waste, fraud, and abuse as you want. Go explain to your constituents in Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee. Go explain to them, listen, you're off your health care, but the corporate class got a huge tax cut. And they're going to use that money to invest in you somehow, right? They're going to spend more on employee wages. They're going to hire more, right? They're going to offer more incentives. They're going to do these things. First, convince them that that's worth it, right? Even if those things were true. Like, even if that's what these corporations did with this money that they gain, even if that was true, go make that worth it to somebody who is already extremely low income and now they're off their health care. Go make them be okay with that. Except the problem is, it's never true. The corporations never go on hiring sprees. They never raise the wages of their workers. They generally do stock buybacks and gigantic parachutes for their CEOs. The management class of these corporations get gigantic pay bumps, while the workers do not. That's generally what they do with this extra money when they get these tax cuts, because it's what the Republicans get done every time. This is the only thing they get done every time. It's the only thing Trump got done his first term. And it's going to be the only thing he gets done this term, except, crapping all over the Constitution. I got it, Scotty. I knew that was, we made it 4 weeks, 5 weeks. We made it 5 weeks without me saying. Defecating on the Constitution is what Trump has gotten done in terms of his immigration raids and what's going on with undocumented immigrants right now. So tax cuts and making the MAGA base feel really good about the optics on TV with brown people getting chased around, beaten, and sent out of the country. He's getting that done too. So let me be fair, right? The debates continued. I'm going to play a bunch of great people. I'm going to play a bunch of senators who make a lot of sense. But I'll tell you right now, I talked about real quick, like, could Murphy be in line for a bump in the party? I talked about Ossoff. I talked about Pritzker. I talked about some of these guys that I like as possible presidential nominees for the Democratic Party. If I had my druthers, if I had my way, and I could just pick the next president, I would pick this guy. I don't think he wants it. It doesn't seem that he does. I wouldn't know, however, obviously, but he's never really talked about it. He doesn't seem to want it. But if I could pick anybody, it would be this guy.
When I first got here, this chamber filled me with awe and wonderment. Our leader, Harry Reid, frequently called me his happiest senator. Such was the awe and wonderment that I felt here. Today, I feel disgust. This piece of legislation is corrupt. This piece of legislation is crooked. This piece of legislation is a rotten racket. This place feels to me today like a crime scene. Get some of that yellow tape and put it around this chamber. The midnight transfer of wealth in this bill is disgusting.
Disgusting. Crime scene. Now we're getting somewhere. That's the tone. That's the proper tone. Let me tell you something. I love that dude, Sheldon Whitehouse. Love him. Love him. Out of Rhode Island, Democrat. I would listen to him read the ingredients of ketchup. I would listen to him read the instructions on how to put together a 3D printer. I would listen to him anytime he wants to talk to me. I would listen. The dude is amazing, and his heart is in the right place. His moral compass is true. He is exactly someone we need to right the ship. I may be in fantasy land, but I would like Sheldon Whitehouse to be my president. It's just how I feel about it. He continues. He's amazing. He continues.
In this place where big money now rules and in which fakery is now the order of the day, and numbers no longer have to be real. There is one point that stands out, and that is that the fakery on the floor is belied by the language of the bill. If these assertions were true, they would not need to raise the debt limit.
So what he's telling you is what I mentioned earlier. They know what it's going to do. That's why included in this bill is a raising of the debt limit, because they know they're going to add to the debt. Even though they're telling you they're getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, even though they let Elon run wild with your data, right? And cut from the VA and NOAA and all these random places that actually do good, even though they did all that and cut $1 trillion from Medicaid, Medicare, ACA, SNAP, they still know it's going to raise the debt. And so they raise the debt ceiling in this bill. That is what he's telling you. They know exactly what they're doing. And don't forget, when all this debt is raised and the corporations get their lower tax rate, grandma's going to be off health care. Just keep that in mind. Just don't forget that.
But this bill actually has a tell right in it. Page 754 of this bill is the reality check on whether or not they're running up the debt by trillions. We know they're running up the debt by trillions because they say so in this bill. You can play Senate procedural fakery. You can wave magic wands around numbers all day long. But someday, soon, you hit reality. And you hit reality in the real world of markets and selling treasury bonds and having a legal debt limit. If this did not raise the debt by trillions, they would not need to raise the debt limit by trillions.
Get it? White House has a way of explaining these things that can be complicated and making it very digestible to you and me. Because we do not have 1/10 of the intellect that White House is working with. Easy for him to grasp it. How do you know it's easy for him to grasp it? Because all of these complex, dark money situations, the debt situation, he makes it so digestible so easily for him. That's the mark of his intelligence. I think he could do that on the macro level. I think he would be excellent in the White House, being able to take that skill, right? Nuanced issues coming out of our government, coming out of the House and the Senate and the executive branch, nuanced takes that require experience, being able to deliver it in a digestible nature to the American public. I think he would excel at that. And again, he's a good guy with your interest in heart. Truly, he has your interests at heart, no doubt. I liked what Van Hollen here is going to say. Senator Chris Van Hollen out of Maryland. He had a nice little chart here that I want to share with you.
If you look at the blue, you can see for each year, starting this year, 2025, 2006, the blue is what Senate Republicans claim their bill will add to the deficit. The red is how much more it will actually add to the deficit. So at the end of this 10-year period, what you see is Senate Republicans are claiming that their bill will add $441 billion, which is still a big number, but the real number when you do honest accounting, when you add up all of these, it's $4.2 trillion, a much bigger number.
So you see what he's showing you there? Their cuts and what they say they're saving and what they say that there will be the overall effect to the debt when you include their cuts to your health insurance and other, honestly, crucial government functionality, that included in the tax cuts will actually be, this level. But he's telling you don't believe it. He's got the real numbers there. It's much higher year over year, what they're going to actually cost us versus what they say they're going to cost us. So that was a nice, simple visual breakdown of the bull crap that we are wading through right now and how disingenuous and dishonest the Republican senators are being right now. It continues. Elizabeth Warren her and Chuck Schumer, they did a tag team. They tag teamed the Senate floor.
Senator from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Leader, for setting the record straight. It's really awful when we hear Republicans come down here and they just don't tell the truth about the bill that they are trying to pass. Maybe that's why they try to pass it in the middle of the night. They think no one will really notice.
Would the gentlelady yield?
I will.
Senator yield. All you have to do is look at their faces.
Yeah.
They know that what they're doing. They know it's unpopular. They know they're, as Senator Murkowski said, that they're all afraid. But it's time for them to stand up, isn't it?
Yep.
All right, ladies, I'm going to show you I'm an ally. Chuck could have just let her explain that herself, right? Did Chuck have to step all over her time? We get it, Chuck. And he knew that Warren would be amenable to it, right? That's why he did it. Hey, Liz, I know you're in the middle of making a point. Let me just kind of tack on because I like the sound of my voice. I love Chuck, but he could have just kept it quiet there and let Elizabeth do her thing because I would argue she's better at doing her thing than you are at doing yours, Chuck. Sorry, let the woman speak. Just putting it out. I'm an ally. Just putting it out there. So a lot of these guys, a lot of these senators are focusing on Medicaid and Medicare, but there are other concerns attached to this Senate version.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
Okay, so real quick, and I'm going to get right into the videos, right into the sound that you need to hear. Senator Ron Wyden and Senator Schatz, Wyden out of Oregon and Schatz out of Hawaii, they raise other concerns. And I'm glad they did it because while everybody is so focused justifiably on the cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, and the ACA, and they should be, there's other cuts here. There's other concerns here, and somebody has to bring them up. Somebody has to debate them and make the American public aware of them. And that fell, in this case, to Ron Wyden and Senator Schatz out of Hawaii concerning our energy situation and the cuts to clean energy, the push for more fossil fuels, the effect it's going to have on our economy, on jobs, internationally, the competition towards green energy. These are all concerns being raised in this bill, and it fell to these two gentlemen, and I thought they did a great job.
I have never seen this kind of economic self-sabotage. The demand for energy booms right now. Even the heads of companies involved in fossil fuels are saying to me and other members of Congress, we need solar quickly to get more electrons to the grid. But Republicans don't want to listen because this plan risks plunging us into an energy crisis. It would be a disaster and a total surrender to China on clean energy manufacturing. It's clear as a sunny day that all the talk from Donald Trump and Republicans about American energy dominance was just a fraud, nothing but a hollow campaign slogan.
Looks a little like Super Dave. So he's telling you, we're going to fall behind in the race to clean energy and dominance globally. And he even invoked the name of China. Maybe he's trying to scare the Republicans because they are so scared of China. It's crazy. And so he says, hey, we're going to lose the energy race to China. We're going to be just handing them the reins. We'll be behind them in this. China. Come on, pay attention, Republicans. Wake up. We don't want to lose anything to China, do we? So I appreciate the strategy there. I appreciate the tactic. He's making it very clear. He continues.
From Oregon.
I want to pick up on the point that my colleague from Washington State touched on. Everybody ought to understand this is the nuclear option. It's just hidden behind a whole lot of Washington, D.C. lingo. The only difference is instead of pressing a big nuclear button right at the beginning of the Congress, Republicans decided that they'd hide behind a cloak of Senate procedure and go nuclear for every individual bill they want to pass on party lines. And I just say to my colleagues, there's going to be a lot of horrendous messes to clean up after this legislation. But my colleagues need to understand the moves, as my colleague from Washington State has said, cut both ways. I yield the floor.
Yeah, and the mess will be much larger in the red states than it will the blue. As long as the Democratic senators and House members come out and are very vocal how they are absolutely 100% against this bill and continue to shout from the mountaintop the effects on your health care and continue to vote no on it, they will have a much smaller mess to clean up than those senators from the Republican side, especially the ones in poorer states. Their mess is going to be gigantic. And it may cost them their senatorship, their House seat. We'll see what it costs the Republicans to push this thing through. Schatz is another one. I like how he broke it down. You got to kind of pay attention. He's very analytical about it, but you can certainly get the gist of what he's saying here.
So let's look at some of the numbers here in terms of the impact of this bill. This bill will kill 300,000 jobs in wind and solar per year. We're going to lose out on $450 billion in capital as thousands of projects go under. And because of that, we're going to generate about 500 gigawatts less energy in the next decade. Now, this bill will create shortages. This bill will impede economic progress. This bill will increase prices. The 500 gigawatts less energy in the next decade is pretty much exactly the amount of energy that we're going to need to meet rising demand.
Well, we know Doc Brown can come up with 1.21 gigawatts. He's good for that. The other 490-something gigawatts of power, Marty, we're going to have to figure something out because we're cutting it. We're cutting back. He went on to explain the effects on, job creation, the economy.
Energy demand continues to skyrocket. Any modifications that inhibit our ability to deploy new energy production risks sparking an energy crisis. 21 House Republicans are worried about an energy crisis would increase utility bills the very next day. This is not me, progressive senator from the state of Hawaii, who has made a career out of fighting climate change. This is 21 House Republicans saying, we're going to create a crisis here. Maybe we shouldn't pass this thing. A lot of this stuff benefits us. If we're all out here talking about all of the above, why are we cutting off our nose to spite our face just because someone wants a talking point? People are literally going to lose their jobs immediately upon enactment.
Okay, the Senate version of this bill includes even larger cuts to renewable energy tax credits. These cuts reflect pressure from hardline conservatives who oppose this Biden-era climate initiative, right? And the impact is going to be, the industry is going to be stifled. Investment in the clean energy industry is going to be completely stifled, and it's going to lead to less jobs in green sectors. It's going to reverse the project we've had on emission targets. They're streamlining permits for oil and gas. They're expanding federal leases for more sites. The EPA budget itself has been reduced by 20% in this bill. 20% reduction in EPA funding. There's a couple other things in this bill that I want to get to before we finish up and hit the final point here. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that was created in 2010 under the Dodd-Frank Act. It was in response to the 2008 financial crisis. We got the CFPB. It generally protects consumers from abusive practices in credit cards, mortgages, payday loans, student loans, and more. It regulates non-bank financial institutions, enforces transparency. They're looking to absolutely get rid of that. While expanding the money taken in by corporations, they are taking away your defense against them. And the Republicans are cutting this because they feel like it's been weaponized, right? Like the CFPB's been weaponized against them. Yes, it's a weapon to defend ourselves against corporate greed. Yeah, it's a weapon. It was. They've broken it. Don't forget also, as we're talking about what's being spent, $110 billion in new defense spending over the next 10 years. Weapons procurement, military housing, pay raises, Space Force modernization. They're spending $47 billion at the wall. 400 new miles of border walls construction, expanding detention centers, hiring 30,000 new Border Patrol agents and ICE staff, surveillance tech, drone, construction. They're spending, just not on your health care, not on your grandma. And Thom Tillis has been the most vocal Republican opponent of this bill, and it has culminated in what we saw unfold today.
That between the state-directed payments and the cuts scheduled in this bill, there's a reduction of state-directed payments. And then there's the reduction of the provider tax. They can't find a hole in my estimate. So what they told me is that, yeah, it's rough, but North Carolina's used the system. They're going to have to make it work. All right.
Yeah, they're going to have to make it work. This is a theme for him. He's tired of being told, yeah, you're right. Your constituents are going to be hurt by this, but look, they're going to have to make it work, right? They're going to have to figure it out. He continues.
But, Mr. President, we owe it to the states to do the work to understand how these proposals affect them. How hard is that? I did it. How hard is it? How hard is it to sit down and ask the Medicaid office, ask the legislative staff, ask the Independent Hospital Association what the impact is? If there's no negative impact, what's wrong with daylight? What's wrong with actually understanding what this bill does? Mr. President, I know what it does because I spent a career implementing complex systems, and then I had the privilege of being Speaker of the House, and I implemented them in a government setting. And since I've been here, I've focused on bills and watched their implementation from the cradle until they're fully implemented. Mr. President, we owe it to the American people, and I owe it to the people of North Carolina to withhold my affirmative vote until it's demonstrated to me that we've done our homework. We're going to make sure that we fulfill the promise, and then I can feel good about a bill that I'm willing to vote for. But until that time, I will be withholding my vote.
Boom.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mic drop, right? He and Rand Paul have both told you, I can't do it. I can't do it. And Trump is well aware of how Thom Tillis feels about this bill. Oh, he's well aware. Just go check Truth Social. Thom Tillis has hurt the great people of North Carolina. Even on the catastrophic flooding, nothing was done to help until I took office. Then a miracle took place. Tillis is a talker and a complainer, not a doer. He's even worse than Rand Fauci Paul. Yeah, all right, great, fine. That one was a bit of a miss, but you're trying, Donnie, and I appreciate the attempt. Keep them coming. Keep the nicknames coming. And so in the face of this pressure from Don, in the face of all of this, how unpopular he knows this is going to be in his state, having to be the one to push back against his Republican colleagues, we got the news.
Congressman, I have to hold out there for one quick second. We've got some breaking news. I want to run to Capitol Hill on this. Chad Pergram with us live. Chad, what do you have?
We have some breaking news here from Thom Tillis, the Republican senator from North Carolina. He has just announced that he is not going to seek re-election in 2026. I'll just read you part of his statement here. He says it underscores the greatest form of hypocrisy in American politics. When people see independent thinking on the other side, they cheer. But those same people see independent thinking as coming from their side. They scorn, they ostracize, and even censure them. Now, I should note that Thom Tillis yesterday, he put out a statement and was one of the 2 Republican no's against proceeding to the big, beautiful bill. And you had President Trump absolutely torch him twice last night. There was one very long statement on Truth Social,
which I
where
just
he
read
said,
to you.
He's great.
Yeah, I just shared you the Truth Social stuff. So Thom Tillis is stepping down. Republican senator from North Carolina, Thom Tillis, is not seeking re-election. I got news for you. North Carolina, North Carolina lately has been in play. Is that fair? In play? Much more in play than some of the deeper red states. And now, Thom Tillis is not seeking re-election. Could this be opening the door for something huge? Could we possibly flip that seat? We'll see.
They'll try to repair the narrative, but Brett Breaks Things will be back tomorrow to break it all down.